Violence has escalated in Ukraine over the past several days. On Saturday, Grad rockets struck the government-held port city of Mariupol, killing 30 civilians and wounding about 100 others. Meanwhile, battles have raged near Ukrainian positions in other parts of the country's east. With violence again flaring up in Ukraine-held territory, it looks as though a ceasefire deal hammered out in Minsk in September has all but collapsed. Writing in Mashable, Christopher Miller says the ceasefire deal fell apart as soon as it was signed. He also mentions a secret deal with Moscow last year, which was meant to hand the control of the Donetsk airport to militants. He says the Kremlin at the time told Ukraine to recognize any further gains by insurgents. Miller writes, an accompanying letter from Russian President Vladimir Putin to his Ukrainian counterpart, Petro Poroshenko, included in the leak, asked also that Kiev recognize territorial gains made by rebels since the ceasefire. The government has not done that and said it will not. Conceding more ground to the separatists would be viewed by the Ukrainian public as an indefensible surrender of sovereign land. The past several weeks have seen a surge in civilian casualties. 3 major attacks have made headlines for the high number of civilian deaths, including the weekend attack on Mariupol. But while residents sort through the rubble, Harriet Salem reports in Vice that a fierce battle for the strategic Ukraine-held city of Debaltseve is underway. Explaining the high-stakes fight, Salem writes, a withdrawal would mean passing through a potentially deadly bottleneck, prompting fears that a retreat from the town could be another Ilovaisk, a catastrophic Ukrainian defeat that resulted in hundreds of casualties and the loss of more than 60 pieces of military equipment, including tanks and rocket launchers. So what is behind the surge in violence? Writing for Foreign Affairs, Taras Kuzio claims that it's a coordinated attempt to destabilize Ukraine. He goes on to say that those who launched attacks against civilians should be labeled terrorists. Ukraine's demands for justice should not be ignored. The Donbass separatist groups do indeed fit the definition of terrorist groups, especially after the Mariupol rocket attack. And there are multiple sources that point to Russian training and military support for them. Kuzio says the attack on Mariupol could be a game changer. The US and Europe have taken a cautious approach to Russian involvement in the conflict. But the recent attacks on civilians have prompted Washington and NATO to increase their rhetoric toward Moscow. Whether that translates into more meaningful action remains to be seen. That wraps up our press review on Ukraine today. I'm Chris Collison in Kyiv.